Hey travelers, Mag and I here on day 95 of our trip around the United States. Today is our last day in North Dakota. Can you believe it? After spending a fantastic week here, it is time to move on to South Dakota. This morning we're starting off from Dickinson, and I can't really say this morning because it's already 1 o'clock here. We had a lot of tasks we needed to take care of this morning, and we went ahead and took care of business before we even thought about geocaching. So we're getting a late start, and we know right off the bat we're not going to finish our miles for the day, but we're going to get as far as we can into our route today. And the last few days it surprised us when we did that, so who knows, we might make it pretty far. For today, we've got 400 miles to cover, and we're really just worried about the last handful of counties in North Dakota and the last 2 pages along that southwestern border of the state. Beside that, we've already got it in the bag. There was only one virtual on the list. We're sitting at it right now. And beside that, the entire thing is all traditionals today, and they're all pretty well roadside grabs. So I do think we'll be able to get some momentum and keep this day moving pretty quickly. I am a big fan of symmetry. So the fact that we finished off yesterday at Theodore Roosevelt National Park only made it more fitting that we could begin this morning with the beginnings of Theodore Roosevelt. This spot here in Dickinson is where he gave his first major public speech. So we took the time to get to learn a little bit more about this great man in history before we hit the road. We're going to go as far as we can, as fast as we can, and get as many good geocaches as we can. So come on, let's go.
We got on the road this morning and it was clear we were no longer in Montana. It was back to the flat fields of North Dakota once again. Knowing this was our last day, we enjoyed the views all along the way and appreciated the differences we noted between Montana and North Dakota, as well as the similarities in the landscapes. There were a lot of empty miles out here without any geocaches to find, but some of them did offer fantastic points of view. This is one of only 2 geocaches in this small town, and one of only a handful within this county. Thankfully, even though we had few options on our target lists, all the ones we decided to chase after were there. This is great because when there's so few targets and they're so far spread across the counties, having to replan any of them is a major time drain. Nice and protected in its little hidey hole, let's bring it out so we can add some ink to the log. Anything interesting going on inside here? Not too bad. A pretty good selection in this jar. At our last stop in South Dakota, we visited the burial site of Sitting Bull. At age 14, he counted his first coup and was given the name Sitting Bull. He grew up to be a prominent warrior and leader of the Teton Lakota. He was killed by tribal police near his home in Grand River on December 15, 1890. Fort Yates was originally known as the U.S. military station at Standing Rock. It retained this name until December 1878, when it was renamed Fort Yates in honor of Captain George W. Yates. The fort still stands in remembrance of the history of the area. One of the most interesting things about Fort Yates is all of the murals painted all around town. While some look like they've been there for quite a while, most of them are pretty fresh. Just a little over a year ago, Babe Walls partnered with the Standing Rock Sioux tribe to bring to life all of these murals. A group of artists from Denver worked together with local artists to transform these buildings into work of arts during a festival that lasted for 4 days. They are hopeful that their combined works of art on display for all to see might inspire the entire Standing Rock Reservation. Although I can speak for no one in the area but myself, I can only imagine that these murals do in fact bring forth a lot of inspiration. And a lot of pride in their local artists as well. This is one thing that a lot of small towns in America can benefit from. Murals can be used to easily represent important facets of life in an area and things they consider important to a history.
The last geocache find in North Dakota. At least with any daylight left. And to end it at a historical spot like this, not too bad. I sure am glad we have Chief Sitting Bull to see us on the way out today. It's been a good run through North Dakota, but it is time to move ever southward. South Dakota, up next.
We've officially made it to South Dakota, where we will be spending the next week exploring the state. The northern edge of South Dakota has a very similar look and feel to the area we just left behind in North Dakota. But that's not too uncommon for many states, where the geography blurs around the lines. The further we progress into South Dakota, the more we'll see this state stand out on its own. For the time being, we'll be more than happy to progress our way through farmlands and rolling hills of grass. Altogether, they make for scenic views and a very wonderful drive through this part of the state. And finally, we made it to some geocaches.
Our first official find in South Dakota. I bet you this is going to be a good one. Let's have a look. All right, yeah, man. Hey, I don't really care what I'm finding. As long as there's geocaches out here to find, I am a happy camper. Go South Dakota, woo! Oh yeah, we are 2 for 2. South Dakota getting off to a good start.
We had not originally intended to stop in Lemmon, but seeing that there was an adventure lab with an adventure lab bonus on the map, we just couldn't help ourselves. And as excited as we were to see the Veterans Memorial, we were over the top to find the Petrified Wood Park. And as luck would have it, this Petrified Wood Park is the largest in the world. It is filled with locally gathered petrified wood formations and other geological specimens of interest. The park also hosts a free museum, itself made out of petrified wood, that is open during the summer months. This peculiar park was the vision of Ole Sever Quammen, a local businessman in Lemmon. He and his son David had kicked around the idea of a park with no living trees for years, and when the Great Depression kicked in, they had all the manpower they needed to finally make the dream a reality. In prehistoric times, the region around Lemmon was a swampy floodplain. Many of its trees fell into the muck of the plain, their trunks becoming fossils. One by one, Ole scavenged these fossils that littered the rangeland and hauled them into Lemmon. With the help of around 30 men, they moved the 4,000 tons of petrified woods into displays in the park. And as if the Petrified Wood Park wasn't enough by itself to put Lemmon on the map, they also host a series of interesting statues and murals all around the town. And in keeping with our theme of what one person can accomplish if they set their mind to it, all of these amazing works of art around town can be attributed to John Lopez. He has works of art displayed across the country and as far away in Qatar, but it's his home state where one can find most of his creations. Raised on a ranch outside of Lemmon in western South Dakota, he has a keen appreciation for cowboys and the animals of the plains. This appreciation shows through in his artwork all throughout the town. And since the bulk of his work is located within South Dakota, we have high hopes that we'll be seeing a lot more works of art by John Lopez during our travel in the next week. My personal favorite was the Tree of Life located within the Kokomo Inn exhibition area. The trunk represents the toil and the hardships that we go through in our lives. Some of these trees, when you look at the trunk, they look like they've really been put through the ringer. Then, in the spring, you've got these beautiful blossoms and fruit. The trunk is harsh. It's the foundation which we must grow upon, and then the blossoms are the beautiful side. And out of the ground grows every tree that is pleasant to sight and good for food. The Tree of Life, also in the midst of the garden, and the Tree of Knowledge of good and evil.
Well, travelers, that is a wrap. Once again, we have run out of daylight. And surprisingly, we made it a lot farther today than I thought we would have, especially given our late start in the late afternoon hours. Today was really kind of a North Dakota, South Dakota day. We got to start the first half driving through the last southern portion of North Dakota, and now we got to finish on the very northern portion of South Dakota. In fact, for the last few hours, we've really just been straddling the line between the two states as we make our way westbound through the northern part of South Dakota, just about to dip up into North Dakota to finish that last page. But we know we're not going to make it there at daylight. Today was a quick day, just like I anticipated. We were moving through the targets one from the next. Long jump, get out, stamp a couple logs, get back in the car, and move again. The pace was rolling, and I think that helped us to get ahead. It also helps that in this part of the map, there's a whole lot of spaces without any geocaches at all. As you can see, the jump to get here was 60 miles, and I just happened to notice this adventure lab in town that really helped to break it up, and we can go find one in the area with the adventure lab bonus. So it's a win-win all around. So here's the thing about South Dakota. Most of the things you would recognize are near the southern portion, near Mount Rushmore. That's where the Badlands is, and there are so many interesting things to see in that part of South Dakota. We're not going anywhere near there. The next most popular place to go through is Pierre. There's actually quite a bit of history to see in Pierre. We're not going to be going there either. And of course, everybody knows about Waldrop. Yep, you guessed it, we won't be going there either. Every place that you would likely recognize on the map of South Dakota is places we've already been to on previous trips. That means for us on this trip, we're going to be going to all the other places on the map you wouldn't normally have heard about. So we're going to get to see a lot of South Dakota in a different way than you would normally get to see. And I'm pretty excited about it because it's a pretty interesting state. You could see the transition clearly, moving from kind of the flat farmlands of North Dakota over to more of the rugged westlands in Montana, just like you can see the transition moving south in South Dakota. It's still a little bit of farmland, it's still a little bit of rugged, but it's got its own uniqueness to the terrain. By the way, the reason she got so excited right now is there's a cat right over there walking around, and she wants to go say hi. We're not gonna let her do that, are we? No, we're not gonna go say hi to the kitty. Let that kitty be, okay? All right, well, Ai-chun says that's all done for us filming today, and she's gonna go have dinner in just a moment here. Like this video, subscribe to stay tuned for daily updates, and we'll see you out on the trails. Okay.